I'm Donna. I'm director of the Embryology Laboratory at Cooper. I have a master's degree in cell biology and ecology. I'm also certified as a laboratory director for embryology through the American Association of Bioanalysts. I oversee 4 other embryologists, and I participate in all the day-to-day activities in the laboratory, which have to do with, anything to do with eggs, sperm, and embryos. We're responsible for growing them out for 3 to 5 days, responsible for cryopreserving them, thawing them, doing genetic diagnosis on them if necessary, selecting the best ones to put back into a patient, and deciding which ones are viable and which ones are not. But most of it is fairly standard. We do offer some of the later technologies. Actually, we offer a good range of the up-to-date technologies, including pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, or PGD, of course, ICSI, which is intracytoplasmic sperm injection, assisted hatching of the embryos for transfer. We have an exceptional cryopreservation program, an embryo cryopreservation program, and it allows our frozen embryo pregnancy rates to pretty much equal our fresh rates, which is fairly unusual, and it also maximizes the amount of babies that we can get per egg harvest, because if you can freeze the leftovers and keep them, and they have a baby on the first cycle, then they can come back and have another one later without a significant decrease in their pregnancy rate, in their chances. Patients would take shots for about 14 days, and then the doctor would go in and retrieve the eggs from the woman, and, well, basically they pass them through in tubes to us, and we locate them. We put them in special culture media, and we either inseminate them with the partner's sperm and let the egg and sperm just do their thing naturally, or we inject the sperm into each egg. That's what's referred to as ICSI, or intracytoplasmic sperm injection. And we create fertilization, one of those ways, and then we culture the embryos for at least 2 days after we see fertilization to make sure that we know which ones are growing the best and look normal and are acceptable to put back into a patient. The conditions that we culture in try to mimic as much as possible the environment that the embryo would be in inside the woman's body, in the fallopian tube and in the uterus. We're very meticulous about quality control so that we know that the conditions are optimal for the embryos at all times. But it's partially the approach that the doctors take with the stimulation protocols. They try to tailor them to patients to make them work better for difficult cases, patients with high FSH, patients who have failed at other centers. The doctors are very willing to take risks, try to tailor the protocols so that that person will have a different outcome here than they would at other centers. And we're not afraid to accept the difficult cases. We do take patients that have been rejected by other centers, and we do reasonably well with them, considering that everyone else told them that they would never have a baby. Even if we get 17% or 20% of them pregnant, it's still better than they would have had otherwise, the chances they would have had otherwise. I had already mentioned the cryopreservation. That's something that separates us from others because we do manage to utilize, instead of just growing out all the embryos and picking the best 1 or 2 for transfer and discarding the rest, we do manage to save almost everything, and those embryos are often capable of creating a pregnancy even if they would have been discarded in other places. Our cryopreservation process sets us apart from other centers because we do have such a good survival rate and pregnancy rate from the cryopreserved embryos that patients can have multiple babies from one oocyte harvest or retrieval instead of having to come back multiple times and have the invasive oocyte retrieval performed repeatedly. I've been here 19 years, and part of the reason I stayed was because Cooper really does try to treat patients as family, and also they treat their employees as family. So the nice thing about being here is you always feel you have some flexibility, some say in what happens, and people value your input. If you suggest a different method or a different treatment for a certain patient based on what you've seen, doctors take you seriously. And that really helps. I like the fact that Cooper tries very hard to be at the forefront of a lot of IVF technologies without pushing them on patients, without requiring that patients spend exorbitant amounts of money to have the latest techniques performed when they're probably going to succeed without them in a lot of cases. And in the cases that they're required, we certainly offer the more cutting-edge technologies, but we also like to save patients money. And a good way to go about that is to not throw everything at a patient all the time. One of the things that patients have expressed to me that is a good thing about Cooper is that while their embryos are in the laboratory, they have contact with an embryologist every day. Not a nurse or someone who doesn't have direct contact with their precious little embryos, but someone who just looked at them an hour ago and can tell them exactly how they're doing. And I've had many patients tell me that that's very reassuring to hear it straight from the people who are caring for their embryos, how everything's going. And sometimes it's not easy for them to hear what's happening, but it makes them feel comforted, connected with how their embryos are growing and how they're doing.